Well, good Wednesday morning. First Alert meteorologist Jacob Durham here with you, breaking down the latest on our WVLT First Alert Weather Day. If you've lived along the plateau, you may already have gotten that notification in your First Alert Weather app. Maybe heavy rain nearby, lightning detected. We are tracking a few storms out there as well for you this morning. I'm going to pull up on my phone the Facebook feed. That way, if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop those in for us, and we'll be the first to kind of answer them. It's a little bit longer of a kind of a long Q&A form that we can do. So if you do have questions, feel free to drop those in. I'll keep a watch on the Weather Service chat as well. They do have a couple of strong thunderstorm tags out there for our northern communities. We'll break that down for you here in just a minute, as some wind gusts could be upwards of 40 miles per hour. All these are below severe limits, though, that are moving in as we speak. So that'll be something that we watch at least for the next little bit. So if you're just joining us, breaking down the latest on this First Alert Weather Day for you. And, of course, if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the comments section. I'll do my best to answer those. But we saw a little bit of sunshine out here in Knoxville earlier this morning. Seeing a little bit more of that sunshine now across Sevier County. That is the area that we're looking at least for a little bit more instability potentially heading in to the early afternoon hours, thanks to that sunshine, that wind beginning to pick up as well. Cloud cover definitely in place for now. Temperatures, though, are sitting back into the mid 50s for a lot of areas, so that is one thing that we're going to be watching. There's not a whole lot of warmth out there, at least at this point in time, so that is what we're going to be looking at in terms of that. But we are up to 63 now in Knoxville, 61 in Sevierville. We're sitting at 56 in Harriman, to 61 Jamestown, 59 in La Follette, to 60 in Middlesboro. So we have warmed up nicely. Some of those wind gusts are accustomed to that, as well as that sunshine that we're seeing out there ahead of this line of showers and storms. You can see it's marching its way across Middle Tennessee as we speak. Now, I will say that the line itself has shown signs of weakening out there. That's good news. Not a big severe weather outbreak expected here in East Tennessee, but a few of these storms could pack a little bit of a punch. And right now, across portions of Scott County up into Campbell and Claiborne as well, that is the area that we're watching for maybe some gusts upwards of 30 to 40 miles per hour at times. But you can see another heavy cell just to the north of Crossville now, and that main line is going to be extending back to the south and west, and that is the area that we're going to be watching very closely. So let's zoom in a little tighter here, show you from Monticello to Stearns, Jamestown over towards Oneida and La Follette. Heads up, you got some heavy rainfall coming in. All the old lightning strikes, those are orange. The fresh lightning strikes are in white. So even back in kind of what we call the stratiform rain, we've got some fresh lightning strikes just to the north and west of Jamestown. But we also have a few fresh tracks. This line, once again, bringing some wind gusts to 30, maybe as much as 40 miles per hour at times. See our numbers continue to go up on Facebook Live, so I appreciate you joining us here on this WVLT First Alert Weather Day. If you're just joining, by all means, go ahead and comment in the section if you have any questions about the weather, and I'll be more than happy to answer those. But we do have a few of those stronger storms now just to the south and west of Crossville. This is the line this part of the line in particular is the one that's going to potentially impact Knoxville as we move forward. So look at the wind gusts. This is going to tell you kind of a tell of what's going on out there. Right now, a lot of the wind ahead of that line out of the southwest, 10 to 15, gusting 20 to 25 at times. But Oneida's already got an 18 mile per hour gust coming out of the northwest. That's behind the line of storms that are moving through. So once that line pushes through, it's going to be kind of quick transitioning for us and then lifting off towards the south and the east with time. So what do you need to know for today? Well, the Wednesday morning commute kind of already done, which is good news. And that's where we saw a lot of fog, dense fog out there for us. But now we're tracking the second half of that rush hour, ponding on the roadways between about 1 o'clock this afternoon and 7 p.m. tonight. The rain tapers off, and what we're going to be looking at is some cooler winds blowing in quickly, upwards of 20 to 25 miles per hour at times. So here's a look at your commute forecast for the rest of this evening. Generally speaking, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, those will be the times that we're watching for the most impact to you, where we could see some of that light to moderate rainfall coming in relatively quickly, and then that could cause a little bit of ponding on the roadways with some lower visibility as well. Let's see. Jack says, what about Marion County in Tennessee? Jack, looking back to the west we've got some showers and storms, but once that main line comes through, things are going to be pretty quiet for us, which is good news. What's it going to be going on around 11 tonight in Tazewell? Amanda's asking. Amanda, good question. By 11 o'clock tonight, outside of some gusty winds, maybe some areas of mist and drizzle, a lot of this is already coming to an end, and I'll show you that here in just a moment. We'll get to Futurecast right after this graphic. I want to go ahead and kind of talk about that severe weather risk with you real quick. We were upgraded yesterday to a level 1 out of 5 risk there in that green shading. So areas to the east, this line's going to break apart. And I will say, based on how it's interacting already with areas to our west, the storms aren't necessarily intensifying. They're kind of holding steady, if not weakening, which is a very good trend for us. And that will be our friend through the rest of this evening as well. But right now, looking at damaging wind gusts being the highest probability of anything that we could see. Hail, not really a factor. We saw some of that across Middle Tennessee, but haven't seen anything that would warrant a severe thunderstorm warning out of it. Tornado risk is very low as well. Maybe a brief spin up possible, and I will say that is a very low risk. Maybe near Crossville, because Jamestown to Monticello has already had that leading line come through. So your severe weather risk, once that leading edge comes through, is all but said and done, which is good news. Let's see. Elizabeth says, how about Greenville? How bad will it be? Elizabeth, not looking at anything terrible in Greenville. Maybe some gusty winds at times. Outside of that, though, really no major concerns. When will it be in Madisonville, Mike? That's a good question. So let's time it out for you. A lot of questions on when it's going to arrive where you live. This is by 2:30 this afternoon. And you can see where that line of showers and storms is. So right now it's already in Jamestown, about to move into Crossville probably over the next 30 minutes to say an hour. And then to areas to the east, that's when it's going to be kind of getting there probably between the hours of say 1 to 2 o'clock, as we're about an hour away from the from midday, which Chief Meteorologist Heather Haley will be on WVLT News coming up at noon. We're tracking that out for you. Meteorologist Ben Cathy will join us as we head through the evening hours, and he'll be with me as well as we're kind of tracking out the latest. So Madisonville, probably anywhere between I'd say 12:30 to maybe 2 o'clock. Kind of moving in. It might be a little bit sooner than 2 o'clock. It'd probably be closer to 12:30 to I'd say 1:15, 1:30. If I had to kind of take a stab on the current timing. The line itself is moving east at 30. These storms individual are moving kind of east northeast at about 60 miles per hour. So individual cells are racing. The line itself moving about 30 to 40 miles per hour. But you'll see that off and on rain continues through the afternoon and evening hours, and then that'll continue to push off towards the east gradually. And then by 11 o'clock tonight, as Amanda was asking there for Tazewell, things are much quieter. We're not looking at much in the way of rainfall at all. Instead, winds coming out of the north. We'll focus our attention on some cooler winds. So here's a look at your future gusts through the rest of this afternoon. 30, maybe as high as 40 miles per hour at times, especially in some of the stronger downpours that are moving through. Once we get past this evening, though, wind gusts 15 to maybe 20 miles per hour at times. And outside of that, it's going to be kind of relatively quiet, which is good news for us that we'll be watching. How much rainfall are we talking about? Well, these numbers keep kind of bouncing around a little bit for us, so we're kind of fine-tuning those as we're coming in. But generally, a quarter to a half inch of rain is a pretty good bet for us as we go throughout the rest of today. So that's good news. Some areas could pick up a little bit more. Some areas may get a little bit less if some of those heavier downpours miss your location. But for those areas that do see training effect, it could maybe get up to about 3/4 of an inch. Let's see, Tammy says, what about Crossville? Tammy, probably here in the next little bit. I'm going to get through the rest of my graphics for you, and then I'll kind of talk about what we're going to go back and look at the radar, and I'll show you where everything is once again. Mike, no problem. We appreciate you watching us and trusting us to bring you the First Alert forecast. I'll pass that message along to the rest of the weather team as well, so I really do appreciate that. Let's see. Ryan says, he said Crossville next 30 minutes to an hour. Yeah, Ryan, that's a good point. And I'll actually go back now and kind of show you a latest look at the radar that we're tracking, because it is moving a little bit quicker than models were picking up. They were showing maybe 1, 2 o'clock. It might be a little bit closer to say probably the next hour or so in Knoxville at times, especially across western portions of the area. So Crossville might be a little bit sooner than an hour. It's probably in the next 20 to 30 minutes. In fact, the northern side of Crossville probably already seeing some of those heavier downpours. So you can see where it's kind of lining up now. Good news is I'm not seeing a lot of fresh lightning strikes along that leading edge, which would indicate that the storms aren't nearly as strong. Now, they still could be producing some gusty winds as they kind of surge out, but heads up towards Middlesboro to Harlan to La Follette. Here in the next 10-15 minutes, you guys are going to be getting in some of those heavier showers as well. Jamestown, that light to moderate rainfall still sticking around. There's Crossville, though. You can see on that kind of that northern edge. That is the area that we're looking at least in terms of some of those heavier downpours. And let me see if I can't zoom in for you and do a little bit better of a scan and show you what's going on here. So let me show you here, since you specifically asked about Crossville. We'll zoom in a little tighter. They are northern Cumberland County. That's where we're getting some of those heavier downpours. You're probably hearing the thunder and probably seeing some flashes of lightning in Crossville, but you probably got about another 20 to, I'd say, 30 minutes at most before this line is working its way in. So that's the storms that we're tracking for you. We kind of pulled it up full screen for you. That way you can see what is going on. So let me kind of reset the DMA view, and we'll kind of go back in and show you what's going on back to our west and our north as well. especially across areas of, say, southeastern Kentucky, where we do have some of these stronger storms, at least as of now, beginning to move through. So there's a live look at what we're looking at in terms of heavier rainfall in and around Barberville to Middlesboro. You can see a couple of fresh lightning strikes there over towards Harlan. That heavy rainfall about to move in Forest, Middlesboro to Log Mountain, La Follette. Those are the locations right now that we have the most impact, at least in the next probably 10 to 15 minutes. You can see Oneida's behind the front now, so your severe weather risk basically all but over at the moment, except for some heavy showers and downpours that we're tracking for you right now. So outside of that, things are looking pretty good for us, which is good news. We'll go back down south, and I want to show you the line back south and west as well. That way you kind of know what's going to happen. I'll kind of widen the scope up a little bit because it's kind of hard to see so zoomed in. But this is the area that we're going to be watching for our impact here, just to the west of Crossville now. Let's see if we can't zoom in just a little bit tighter, and I'll show you what we're dealing with, and I'll pause it and show you what is exactly happening, because this area here, it's going to be kind of a wide scope of things, and I'll kind of zoom in. There's Nashville, where we got some of those heavier downpours just to the north of Columbia, there in Middle Tennessee. But a lot of these storms not severe, which is good news at the moment. Yes, they could contain some gusty winds, but I don't think anything outside of that. I'm going to check and make sure that I don't see anything from the National Weather Service. I don't, which is also excellent news. Let's see. Penny says, what about Gatlinburg, Tennessee? Penny, you're probably looking at maybe between 1 and, say, 2:30 this afternoon. Some of those heavier downpours beginning to move in. Once again, they're a little bit faster than models were showing yesterday, which is a good news, because that means two things. One, they don't have as much instability to work with. We don't have as much time to heat up during the afternoon. Two, we don't have as much time to go through with these. So these are going to kind of come through at a very quick rate and then begin to diminish. So I think the good news there in that regard is that we're not going to be looking at, a long period of impact in terms of severe weather. Now, these showers and storms, they could still produce some of those gusty winds as well as the heavy rainfall through the evening. That could cause some slowdowns on the roadways, but that is our major concern right now in terms of what we're tracking on this WVLT First Alert Weather Day. I'm not seeing any more questions at the moment. If you do have about that, well, let's see, Robin asked, what about Rutledge? Rutledge, you're probably looking at the next, I'd say, hour to hour and a half before some of these showers and downpours get there, maybe a little bit sooner, but the trend that I'm seeing as they're kind of coming off the plateau is they're losing a little of their gusto. Now we'll have to watch that line of showers and storms that are back to the southwest across. So they're a little bit more potent than the northern side of it. If you remember going back to that graphic, and I'll see if I can't go through it real quick and show you what I'm talking about in terms of that severe weather risk. Now remember, the greater risk for that severe weather potential here is going to be from Jamestown to La Follette to Knoxville to Crossville. So areas to the north don't have as much instability. Warm front didn't quite get as far, so that's where we're looking at the opportunity for maybe a strong storm or two. So we're going to have to watch it at least the next couple hours. Chief Meteorologist Heather Haley, she is in as well. And then Meteorologist Ben Cathy, he'll be coming in this evening. We're going to have team coverage for you coming up on WVLT News at noon. And then once again, as we head into 3:34 or 5 o'clock this evening, we're going to make sure that all aspects are covered. If there's a watch or a warning issued, I don't anticipate any watches being issued, looking at the National Weather Service and how we kind of communicate with one another. Right now, it doesn't look to be that kind of severe weather outbreak or event. So that's good news. We don't have a lot of instability to play with because we haven't seen a whole lot of sunshine today. Now, the winds could help us kind of fuel at least a little bit. So what we call a conditional severe weather event, where we have winds coming out of the south, that's going to feed in some rich, warm air. But outside of that, things are fairly quiet for the moment in terms of that. Let's see. Maryville. What about Greenville, Tennessee, Camp Creek area? Sarah and then Ruthie asked about Maryville. Maryville, probably looking at some gusty winds, maybe between 1 and 2. That's kind of where I'm leaning at in terms of the time frame. It may be a little bit sooner. Generally, these are running about an hour quicker than anticipated. So maybe between, say, 12:30 to 1:30 at some of the peak in terms of what we're looking at there. So I will say that Greenville, looking more so towards that 2 o'clock time frame, maybe as late as 3 o'clock as that line pushes in. But with that being said, we're going to kind of wrap things up here for now. If you have any questions, feel free to message us on Facebook. We'll be more than happy to answer those for you. Of course, we're going to go back in, keep a close watch on these showers and storms as they move through. I'll reset the picture so that if you're just joining us, you can see the radar one more time. But I will show the winds as well Those are beginning to pick up just a little bit ahead of that. But Crossville already has kind of a northerly wind. That's good news. Oneida was northwesterly behind the front. And Athens and Tellico Plains, that's where we're dealing with some of those gusty downpours at the moment in terms of those wind gusts. But we'll keep a close watch on it. If anything's issued, we'll update you on air and online. Until then, have a great rest of your morning, and we'll see you back on at WVLT News starting at noon.